I want to win and I want that trophy and I want to be a
I'd
Grammy
be shocked if you said
winner.
you didn't want to win. I'd be like, all right, just take her off the sheet. I want to ask you to really start off. Like, obviously, congratulations on the Grammy nomination.
Thank
Uh,
you.
I want to ask because I did find that interesting because, I grew up in Canada. I still am in Canada. But, like, I remember listening to, like, Sharon Lois and Bram. We've had, I guess, like, Splash and Boots. So, like, it's a lot of. I know there's people out there now that's going to instantly want to cancel me when I say this, but, like, obviously, we had a lot of white childhood entertainers, like even Mr. Dress Up. But
Right.
I think it's kind of interesting because I had to do a little bit of research myself on this, but like this is a whole stance, I guess, too, because when you look at the Grammys and the whole nomination process,
Yeah.
especially for in this category about like uh I guess music for
Music.
children,
Yeah.
it's more or less it was very white. Now to see you getting nominated, I mean, it kind of I want to ask you, I guess, how do you feel about this? Because I guess it makes a mark and makes you feel kind of, I'm not going to say special, but more or less like valued because it's almost like, all right, now we're recognizing that it's just not all white. There are, different races, different
That's
ethnicities that
children's
are,
music,
yeah,
family music. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, it really has been dominated, not only by the white race, but more. It was very male dominated genre as well. And then also the genres that lean more towards being in this category were more folk music
okay,
based as well. So this year has been a revelation because it is not only the first year that we've had multiple ethnic artists nominated in this category, but also more women, in this category, which is phenomenal. So I mean, and I feel like like last year, one of my albums was on the initial ballot, and it didn't make it to the final ballot. And of course, there's a lot of disappointment, and you look back at the ballot and you go, well, these are pretty much the same artists on
yeah,
the ballot year after year, and most of them are like male folk artists, and a lot of them are actually not doing children's music. It's folk music. So just because it's folk doesn't necessarily mean it's just, it's children's genre. And there were a lot of different artists from all walks of life and different backgrounds that are doing specific family, children oriented music that were not being recognized at all. So a lot of people took a stand against it last year. And I joined this organization called Family Music Forward. And they were the first to really kind of contact the Grammy organization and basically just, they got a lot of letters written from different artists in that world, including myself. And we just told how we feel, how we felt about what had happened and what's been going on and all of this stuff. And they basically reviewed everything, and they just came to a point where and not only our genre actually, but last year, I mean, I know a lot of people know that The Weeknd had a problem with his music as well, not being nominated for
Canadian reference, nice, nice, nice.
being recognized in certain categories and so on and so forth. So there was a lot of unhappiness with how the final ballot came about. And I don't know if a lot of people know this. Before this year, the final ballot was determined by a private group of people
Oh yeah,
who determined who was going to make it onto that final ballot. Usually, categories such as mine is usually only 5 people on that final ballot, right? 5 artists. So no one really knew how they got to that 5 or how many ever was in the category. Well, now this year is the first year after so many people, including myself and other people in the children's music genre, to make a stand against this private uh, membership or crew that was determining the ballot. This year was the first year that now the peers vote completely on every step of the voting process, which is amazing. It's really amazing. So I'm so grateful to be a part of something that has actually has changed for the better, for so many artists. And yeah, so I mean that's kind of I mean that's just an amazing thing to have happen. And I'm just proud to be a part of not only that process, but now being a part of a group that is, really putting music out there for, children of color and different ethnicities and different genres, because we not only represent, um, folk music, but there's a lot of people of color that are doing folk music. They're doing R&B, pop, orchestral sounds, just all these different genres mesh together to entertain families and children and families. So I'm really happy that now this year really represents a diverse, people of art, artists in that category. It's amazing.
Yeah, I kind of want to ask you because not that I'm guessing just kind of an opinion piece more or less, but like
Mhm.
when you're saying that there are people that kind of went to the Grammys and said, okay, what's going on here? Like kind of doing a little bit more digging into it. Like I wonder, has it ever been done in the past? I feel like it has and just kind of got glossed over, but like I'm wondering just because you have now the shift of with social media, you have the shift of all of a sudden with like Black Lives Matter and stuff. Like I I look at it in two different ways because the one side, I'm a person that kind of like represents the media in terms of like I went to school, I wanted to work in media,
Mhm.
but there's a side of me that because I'm a person with a disability can
Mhm.
kind of relate in a way. Now, obviously, we got to be careful how we word things today, but like I can relate it in a way of saying like, all right, I understand the argument of like, all right, how come we're not being represented?
Yeah.
Like what's going on here with us? But then there's a side of it where I look and I'm like, media is picking at it from a standpoint of like, oh crap, we're in like deep shit if we don't do something about this because of the whole Black Lives Matter movement. Like,
Mhm.
I feel like for someone like myself, if I want to be a sportscaster today, and it's almost like, well, no, like there's not really anything for you there. But like all of a sudden, all it takes is just say something happens with a person with a disability, and there's a whole movement.
Everybody,
Media just
yeah.
jumps.
Suddenly you'll
Media
have
jump.
so many
Yeah,
allies to jump on.
yeah.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if that like obviously plays a
Absolutely.
factor, right? Because it's like,
Absolutely. It
yeah,
does. Now that people have access to everything, you know what I mean? Nothing's done behind closed doors anymore,
yeah,
so literally. So, I mean, people are really aware, a lot more aware these days of what's happening in every different workplace or um in everywhere, I should just say.
yeah,
Because, not only do we have social media, we have just the internet, period. You're able to put things out there. There's not only like, these higher play, there's also these places, I don't know what they're called, like BuzzFeed and like all of these like other, they're not social media companies, but they are internet, like I don't even know what they're called and what they're titled, but I
yeah,
know that they're putting out these different stories on the net, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
making it available for the world to see everything, so there's a lot of those companies and they are definitely available to anyone. You don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be a PR person, you don't have to be in charge of this company. Anyone can call up these people and go, oh well, this is what's happening, and
yeah.
so I guess that everything is so accessible, these days,
It,
whereas back in the day I don't think we had that at all. So yeah, and that's what I mean. Like people are putting together organizations in communities like the Family Music Forward did to fight against this whole thing with the Grammys and not being inclusive, basically. And that, and I think it's great. I mean, people do need to be called out and things need to be kind of sorted through to make sure everything is an even level, playing field and ground
yeah,
for everyone.
yeah,
I mean, I noticed I just became a Grammy voting member because in order to vote for the Grammys, you have to be a member.
yeah,
And I just got my membership, thankfully, after all these years. Um, um, but yeah, you have to, the way they have it set up for you to vote, everything, is I think is quite amazing because really you do have to go through the process of listening and sifting through everything. I mean, yes, you can. I mean, you can, log in and just cast your vote, but there's so much.
Yeah.
And you don't want to just vote for anything because there's a lot of stuff that you've never heard of. So it really forces you, the way they have it set up, to actually listen, go through everything, and then everybody gets a fair shot. And I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it was amazing because I saw a lot of artists that were well known in a lot of these categories, and I can see how it's easy for them because they have so much press and they're so mainstream that
Yeah.
they would get all the votes of popularity votes. But now, if you're going through and they make it so easy to listen through to everything and all the artists, and you go, gosh, like, why isn't this playing on the radio? And why is this artist not on my television? It gives those people a chance because we're actually able to listen and go through everything and take our time, and you don't have to vote right away either. You
Yeah.
can save your process and come back tomorrow in a couple of days. It's fantastic. I love it.
We have that, I think, similar to in Canada, where it's like the Juno Awards. So it's like recognizing like Canadian talent, and it's
Ah,
kind of interesting. And I'm sure they have like, I think it's like I'm trying to remember, like they have like American Country Music Awards and the American
yes,
Awards too. But like it's interesting because with the Junos, you look at the category and you see like a Bieber versus The Weeknd versus Drake, and then you'll see like some artists that because you found the niche audience, and then you're like, oh man, I feel so bad because you're up against these people. And then the next minute you see them win it, and you're
right.
kind of like, okay, like I'm interested to know how like the hell
That
you won that over these artists. But I guess obviously I'm not in on it, but I like that they do get their fair chance because
Yeah,
I mean there's awards here in like my province of Newfoundland where it's like you look and you're like, oh, I gotta compete against people on radio. And then it's like people don't really know me because I'm not on radio. I'm a podcaster. But then you're like, okay, that criteria has to like change if that's the case, or like create its own identity, because it's like I'm sure years ago, if you just classified music as music and like you were up against a pop musician, it's like two different genres here. How do you expect her to gain credibility when you're putting her up against this person?
yeah.
So but yeah, I think that's an interesting take there as well, like how the whole process comes together and more or less you
Mhm.
don't have to vote right away. I mean, that's good because it gives
That's
you time because like you can change on the fly. You might be like, actually, when I listen to this, I like this, but I just like how this like flows or like they don't get enough recognition. So maybe let's give them that. Because I know on Instagram a lot of the times, like you did mention about the Weekend and his whole deal with the Grammys, but
Yeah.
I guess as typical as it might sound, because I'm white and I like kind of rap music and hip hop, I like Eminem, but I like his whole take on the Grammys of saying like, you know, why do you want me here? Just because you can put it on a marquee that I was here, but if I don't win an award, you can keep saying, well, Eminem's at the Grammys, Eminem's at the Grammys. But if he
Right.
doesn't win, he's like, it doesn't really make a difference because I know I'm good, you know I'm good, the people out there listen to my music. So if I never win a Grammy, people are not going to go into the history book and be like, well, Eminem never won a Grammy, so I guess he wasn't good.
Right.
It's like he's won other awards, so whatnot. But yeah, it's interesting. I want to ask you too, just because I like to know a little bit about people's backstories. So like,
Yeah, yeah,
I know that you, I believe at age 8, got into like gospel music. Not my thing. If I tried to join gospel, they'd be like, Brian, you are really, really not meant for this. And I'd be like, hold on, we're in a culture that you have to allow me. They'd be like, I understand that, but no, we're
yeah.
drawing the line. I'd be like, all right, fair. But tell me, like, how did you get into gospel? Because I know you grew up in Memphis,
Mhm.
Tennessee.
It's
So
Tennessee.
was that like a part of its culture, a part of the history where it was like you were around it, surrounded by it, and said, trying it?
I mean, my grandparents were very much they were very spiritual. We went to church a lot. As I just remember going to church a lot, like maybe 3, 4 times a week, sometimes more if, it depends on any given month, so, I was a part of the church choir for a while, but I mean, my whole family's pretty much musical. We had people, well, we also lived in Memphis where at the high schools there were marching bands, You know what I
Okay.
mean? There were choirs at the school, there were marching bands, there were, so a lot of people in my family played instruments. So we had a trumpet player, we had somebody on the drums, we had somebody on the organ, somebody on the guitar. So we were very musical in our house. And then so when we went to church, we were all in the choir. If we weren't in the choir, someone was, playing the instruments, So we ended up putting together a family choir, essentially. And my grandmother's brother was a pastor as well, but he had a church in Brownsville, Tennessee. And so we would occasionally go there to just visit. And every time we went to go visit, he would put us on the spot by making us come up and sing, every single time. It never failed. So after that, then people we got invited to just different churches to go and start performing, So that's kind of how we formed our little family choir. And then we just started going to different places and performing. And which was great because we always performed, whether we liked it or not, at home. Like if one person starts singing, then the other person starts singing, and she's doing harmonies, and then then somebody's picking up the guitar, and it's like a musical in our house. So that's how I grew up, and I loved every minute of it. And I learned through singing. For me, singing gospel was very much, essential to my vocals and what I know as music, because it helped me train my ear at such a young age. And I can hear different things in terms of like harmonies, background parts, vocal parts, and even instrument parts. Now I did, when I was younger, I played a little bit of violin. I was in the band. I played the clarinet, but I didn't continue to play instruments. I was
Okay.
more performance based vocally and just stage presence. But when I work with producers now, I have to credit me being able to write melodies and come up with different sounds, and actually be able to essentially come up with instrument sounds as well. Like sometimes I can hear instruments in my head and how I feel like it should sound in a song, or oh no, this drum pattern should sound like this. Oh no, we need this sound. I credit all of that to having been a part of a musical group, a gospel group, which was in my family, because I'm listening to them create, and it's just so many years of working with people and working around other people's voices and fitting in and this and that and harmonizing and all of that. And then with the choir, there's so many different voices, so many different things going on, so many parts. Like each section group section can be singing something different all at the same time to make one sound. So
Yeah.
all of that was very helpful for me as an artist, because some people go, oh, well, how do you write your music? How do you, come up with these songs and these melodies? You don't play instruments. And I go, well, no, I don't. My instrument is my voice, but I hear things, not
Yeah.
necessarily every song, but a lot I do. And,
Yeah.
sometimes I can come up with a full song, not having even gone to the studio with anyone. I'll go to
Oh
the
wow.
studio with something all flushed out, and I'm going, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm hearing, and that's just how it is, which I'm super happy that I can, actually, because sometimes I regret, oh, I should have played the piano, or I should have
Yeah.
guitar. But I've done very well with what I've been given, and happy.
Well, like speaking of doing well, because it kind of goes side and side with this, but like prior to having you on, like I said, doing a little bit of research, but like I was kind of fascinated because I'm sure there's an audience out there that's like, okay, like I did not know that, and
Mhm.
sometimes that's the cool aspect of having people on, but like obviously working with like Timberland or co-writing with the script. Tell me a little bit more about that because I can tell by the way that you're passionate about that answer if you did that exact same thing going in and talking to Timberland or being like, hey, like I can see, and I can see them just being like, that's yes, yes, just like me. But like, tell me how those stories come about or how you got to work with these people.
Yeah, so I moved to New York from Tennessee. I was in college, going in Clarksville, Tennessee. Moved to New York, and at the time, I was just doing like fashion stuff. I was modeling and whatever, and I met some girls that I ended up joining a girls group with. And so then one of my girlfriends that I met modeling was, had some connections with the Timbaland crew. And she was like, you guys have to come up to the studio. You should come and sing for them, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, okay. So we went up there and sang. And, he was like, okay, well, come back another time, I was like, okay. So he shouldn't have said come back because we went back.
Yeah.
You don't just, for us, we were like, you don't just brush us off and say, come back, because, we will come back. Okay. We will take you literally and we will come back. So
why wouldn't you?
kept going back to finally, he asked us to just go in the booth and sing like some background parts and little things like that. So that's kind of how it started. And then we started, because we were just starting to kind of write. I wasn't really deeply into writing at that point. I was only just singing. But once we started kind of dabbling a little bit with some of his tracks, it just started to really flourish for me then. Like I would go to sleep, I would have ideas, I couldn't sleep, wake up in the morning, it was crazy how that kind of just transformed instantly, really. So that's how we got in, started working with Timbaland. We didn't really just go in and it's like, he was like, oh, well, come and I'm going to sign you type of thing. It was like, oh yeah, okay, come back. And we were like, okay, well, we're going to keep coming back. And then he was like, okay, we're sitting there waiting for him to just toss us a bone, basically. And then we're like, oh, go sing this part on this, background here, background there, this and that. And then we became like Jimmy Douglas, who was his engineer mixer, became our mentor, basically. And so then he would also just champion us anytime in the studio to get on records. Oh, Tim, give them some tracks so they can go work on, write and this and that. So he really pushed us to write because he knew that was the way we were going to get in deeper. Okay. And we were actually going to go somewhere. And it was at one point where Missy came into the studio one time and Jimmy was talking about us as a group, and she had an idea. She wanted to put together a multicultural ethnic group and rename them Mary Jane Girls. She wanted to license that name and put a group together. But here we were sitting, a multi-ethnic girl group. We had a different name, but we were, of course, open to taking the name. So basically she took us on for a bit, and she was like, we started writing. Then she gave us a couple of her songs that she had written for other artists that didn't go on to their albums and things like that. So we just started recording and writing and this and that. And then we started doing showcases and all this stuff, which was very exciting at the time. And we ended up working with a lot of producers that came up under Tim that didn't have any name at the time. And they would fly us to like Texas to work with, different producers and, record, just because it's a game when you, because you have to record and work on so many songs before you have a final album or a final piece. You never know what's going to make it and what's not. So it's just, you just go, 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 go. So that's kind of what we did. And then unfortunately we got a lot of interest from Columbia, and we were basically going to sign a deal because we had signed a production deal with Timbaland's production company. And then he was going to sign a deal with Columbia for our group. And when we one trip to Texas, when we were working, we were there for a week. It was 4 of us at the time, and me, myself, and one of the other lead singers. We were the only 2 that went to Texas to write because we were the only writers and we were the lead singers. The other girls stayed back. They just only did backgrounds and they were there for stage performances. But they got a set, decided they didn't want, because they couldn't go to the studios and that, they decided to leave the group. So that's how the group broke up, and it was just a fiasco. I mean, thankfully, we did some really good work when we went to Texas, because when we got back, because I thought, oh my God, the groups broke up. This is over. We're never going to do anything again. We were just like, everything was a downer. But we got back from Texas and we went to the studio to show them what we had written, and they were listening to everything. And I suppose it was impressive enough to keep myself and my co-writer and singer, Michelle, on as writers. So we stayed on as, background singers and writers. And we just, we were just like writing like crazy. And then we got a publishing deal, and that was amazing because then we had stipend to just write, and we had a quota to meet every month, and it was fantastic. And that's how I really, because that was my school of writing. Basically, it was like college for me, and that's what I did every day. So that was kind of the relationship, and we were just trying for placements. Things would fall apart, things would kind of sort of happen, and then not. You know how the music industry is. Nothing's really, or the entertainment period. Nothing's really happening until it's already happened. So that kind of happened a lot, and what I did end up having a lot of success with is my first commercial that I did with Timbaland, which was a Kmart Joe Boxer commercial, and it was just because I was in the studio with him that day. I sang on this spot, and Dave Meyers was the director, and they wanted a Missy Elliott type of vibe, like that gossip folks type of thing. And I just so happened to be there, and because I had been working there for so long, I could do that. So I went into the booth and did that. They ended up keeping me on the commercial, and that was fantastic. And that was like the beginning of my jingle career. Which was amazing for me because before that I'd never really made any money, so it was like, oh my God, it was crazy. So that's kind of how that happened. And then that just spiraled. It just kept spiraling into different things and getting on different projects and so on and so forth. And Danny came about, Danny from the Script.
Yeah.
Because I was visiting LA because I was still in New York at this point. And I was coming here for a project, and he was in a studio that I was working out of, and met him, and we just connected, and we're working on this this gaming project first, and we did a theme song for a game. It was a VR game. So it was the first collaboration, and then we did a couple of other songs that I actually haven't even released, which is kind of crazy. I don't know. Who knows? I may release them, but yeah. So that was my collaboration. And this is right before the Script was the Script. He was doing exactly what I was doing, really, which was he was writing a lot. He was in a writing circle too, where he was going to studios and writing and trying to get placements on different artists' albums, because that's the game as a writer,
Yeah.
as a writer. You're just like you try to get in and write or co-write with different groups, and try to get some placements happening. So we were kind of in the same place at that point, just trying to get some placements, and happened to be in the studio one night, and we collaborated over a few days, but just that first night we did the theme song for the game, and then we did a few like kind of R&B pop songs. He's amazing. He really is amazing. And I mean, I'm so happy that, because I remember the first night we worked, he wasn't thinking that the Script was going to be the Script.
Oh wow, okay.
It wasn't really born yet, you know what I mean? So it didn't come till later, and then when it kind of sort of was happening, it was just like, wow, congratulations. It was amazing. It was amazing. And
I guess you were like, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I mean, I guess you seeing, because obviously we don't get these kind of conversations, but it's like, when you have them and he's like, yeah, I'm just picturing like my own kind of concept when you're pitching an idea to someone, or just saying like, yeah, I'm in a band, or yeah, we're a couple of guys, we sometimes sing, but I don't know if we're going places. And next minute it's like, all right, you don't think you're going places. I see you on charts now.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what happened, really. I mean, I just remember the last day we worked together, I was giving him a ride to, I think, was it Venice or something? It was the West Side, because we were working like in like Beverly Hills, like West Hollywood area. And then we drove over to where he was staying. It was just like, you know what I mean? It was like, whatever. We were living the artist's life, and but yeah, then like, I think just like in maybe not 2 or 3 months, but like a few months down the road, suddenly the Script was born, and he had a deal and this and that, and they finishing a record. And then because he went back to Ireland. Yeah. And then because the producer that I work with is actually right now still, because I wasn't married at the time, but is my now husband's best friend, and he did a lot of the songs on the Script album. So
nice.
so when when Paul told me, the producer's name is Paul, when Paul told me that Danny and the rest of the script were coming here for their first tour and then all the stuff, and I saw the video, yeah, and then I went to go see them at the gosh, I forgot the club on Sunset. I'll think of it later. But anyway, yeah, and I went to see them and got to see, and that was my first time seeing him after we'd worked together. And suddenly he's on tour and he's like, got all these people at the concert. I'm like, what is going on here? It was crazy. It felt like it happened so fast. But
Yeah.
I was just over the moon. I mean, ecstatic for them and he's such a talented writer. I mean, and singer, but his writing in the studio was so impressive for me, just working with him and seeing his process and actually witnessing it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm so honored that I got a chance to work with him and write a few songs with him. But yeah, I mean, he's super talented, super talented.
I feel like, and it's kind of like to give you a little bit of a light here too, but I feel like when you're younger and you're listening to like artists, and I'm not throwing shade at these people because like obviously they're talented, but like when you're listening to say Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, like for me or Christina Aguilera, you're kind of like, all right, I like the song, but then when you find out years later where it's like, all right, yeah, 16-year-old Britney is not writing a song about hit me baby one more time. They actually like, yeah, and then you're kind of, it kind of deflates you a bit, but then at the same point you're like, but she did it so well because maybe that writer knows that they're not great at music like singing, but they're like, I know you can give this light, which is cool because I think sometimes we undermine writers. Like I'm just shocked sometimes when I listen to music and you'll interview someone or you'll have a conversation and they're like, actually, I wrote on that. And I'm like, oh, really? Because here I was giving like Bieber all the credit for this. And it's like, no, I
Yeah.
was a part of that too. And I'm like, all
Mhm.
right. And they don't take it away from him. They're just more or less saying like, I was a part of that. And I'm like, okay, that
It
makes
was a
sense.
collaboration.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Cause like when I know for my example to go to now, like obviously when you mentioned the script, like I grew up with the script, like with listening to them like when I was in university and their
Mhm.
songs. I'm like, you are hitting me too hard. But you like I get this is good because you're actually putting thought and soul into the music.
Yeah.
But like I remember listening to One Republic when I was younger,
Mhm.
and you would see like Family Guy or stuff make jokes of it. It's like, well, they're very like tame, they're very like blah. And I'm just like, you know what? They kind of are. But then like you grow up, you start really listening to it and you're
Mhm.
like, man, like Ryan's a really good writer. He's been
Yeah.
on other people's stuff. And I'm like, awesome. But I guess like having the writing background, then going into the music, I feel like it gives you a leg up rather than just like being a really good singer because you
Yes.
kind of know what you want to do. Where singers like, all right, I'll sing this song for you. And then you're like, all right, but you're not really getting what I want you to get out of it. And it's like, well,
Right.
I've never gone through that. And then it's like, well, I have, but I want to try to implement you to understand that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's there are writing is not for everybody, like
Hard.
every
It's
it's
hard.
hard. It is hard. And there are a lot of artists that just don't write and don't want to write. And I understand being a writer. I'm like, sometimes I'm like, oh God, like why, what am I doing? But yeah, I mean, it could be very challenging. For me, the biggest challenge is because I actually really enjoy writing and creating and coming up with things. Where it gets hard for me sometimes is when there's the pressure to be very specific about it has to be this topic or is for this person and it just needs to do. Then you're just like, then that's
Yeah.
where I become a little stunted, a little bit. And I'm just like, okay, that takes away the fun of it. Why can't I just write and see what, comes out, and I just like to create. I mean, can I do it? Yes, I can.
Yeah.
I can do it. I have to force myself sometimes. And in those moments, it's easier to collaborate. Generally, if I have to write for someone else and like if there's a real mission, there's so many guidelines, then I'm probably going to need somebody else to bounce off of because my mind will just be like, I have to stay within. It's like fighting to just break out and do what it wants to do. So that becomes a little challenging. But when I'm just writing and just having fun and just like creating stuff, and then I'm good. I don't. You let me knock on some wood first. I usually don't have writing blocks, but I
Yeah.
don't want to start.
When did you really get into kind of doing like children's music? Because I know it's kind of a leap from going from Timberland to children's music. Like I don't know, did Timberland release a kids record and I'm just not aware?
Wow. So funny. Okay. Yeah. Well, see, a lot of people get mixed up in thinking because I do children's music means that I don't do pop music or dance music anymore.
Yeah,
I
that's
still do.
wrong. That
Still
is
do.
wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. So I as a pop writer and performer, and I do a lot of dance music and stuff for myself as an artist. I go by Cheri Moon. And as a children's artist, I go by Snooknuk.
Okay.
Now, I
That
s-
explains it in your thing there. I
yes,
was like, okay.
yes. I took interest in writing children's music because I got into writing jingles for television, and so that whole train of thought not going from because I was still writing songs, and trying to get placements, and then I was writing songs for myself, and all of that stuff while I was still doing the jingles. The jingles just paid the bills,
Yeah.
So I got into a mode of writing very repetitive things, very catchy. When you hear things on the commercial, it has to be very catchy, repetitive, memorable, spark someone's attention really quickly. So I got into that mode because I'd been doing it for quite a few years. And the guy, Joey Levine, who was he's like the bubblegum pop guy. He wrote, he's a part of he wrote all the songs sugar, sugar, and yummy, or anything that repeated more than
Okay.
2 or 3 times, he's like the king of. You know what I mean? So he was one of the jingle gods that I was working with, and he was doing children's music and putting out children's albums alongside doing other stuff. But his children's music stuff was the albums, and he licensed them so much. He just always kept talking about how it was such a great moneymaker and genre, and it was very successful for him. And I just wow. And I never really thought about it in depth until I got pregnant. And so when I got pregnant and I had my first daughter, I just started making up all this. I'm just naturally not thinking I was going to create an album or write a song or anything.
Yeah.
I'm just a very musical person. I will just, like I said, with my family, I'll just start singing. If we're long enough, we're on here longer than an hour, I might just start singing. Right. But yeah, it's just I'll just make up a song about anything. So when baby talking to my daughter when she was a baby, or trying to teach her things, I just start coming up with these melodies and songs to say what I wanted to say, because it was not only easier and fun, but it actually made her listen
Yeah.
and also repeat what I was saying, because it was fun and it was in song. And then songs is the best way for people to learn. And even in school, they try to teach everything through song. They try to make ABCs or this and that. We're gonna make this into a rap.
Yeah.
Kids could remember things. So I thought, maybe I should, because I was just writing little snippets, basically hooks for different things, just to wake her up in the morning, or to teach her to like vegetables, or to teach her to share, or let's not have a tantrum today. All of these different things. So I just was writing hooks, but then I was like, you know what? I need to flesh these out. I'm going to write these into full songs. And then, so when I started going to the studio and actually recording them, it just became epic. And they came out really nicely. And then I just was on a roll, and I just kept going. Suddenly I went from oh yeah, I got 2 or 3 songs to oh gosh, I got 35 songs. It's crazy. I'm gonna, so that's kind of how that happened. And then I got pregnant again with my second daughter, and then suddenly, 2 different personalities, and suddenly I'm worrying about
Yeah.
something else. Oh God, you don't want to go to the potty? Okay, I'm writing songs.
Yeah.
Just stuff. Yeah, I don't want to go to the doctor. I don't want to take a bath. All the challenges that parents go through with their toddlers, I wrote about them and put them into songs, and I just made it into a musical tool for parents and grandparents and nannies or whoever that need to teach their kids not only basic hygiene, because now I go into more social awareness as they've gotten older, you know. So, and this is actually where this transforms into the song that the song and the album that's nominated for the Grammy. So the song that is on the album that's nominated for the Grammy is called "We're All the Same," and
Okay.
it is about social awareness and accepting people for who they are and recognizing that we are all people, and we may come from different backgrounds, we may look differently, we may have, you know, different hair, different skin color, all of these things, but we're all the same. We're living on a planet. If we work together, we can make it all work, right? And this was just such a universal message for me and children, because, you know, I feel like children, if we all know that children aren't born hating people, you know, or any of that. So I just feel like when they have songs and musics and messages that they listen to that promotes this oneness, you know,
Yeah.
and love, then I feel like, you know, that's how we're going to change generation after generation after generation, where we can actually make some progress. So that's really where this messaging and this song and this whole album called All One Tribe, that's really what it's about, you know. It's about unity. And I'm that's why I'm so proud of this project. One Tribe Collective is the name of the group, and I'm super excited about it, and because everybody is really trying to put out some positive reinforcements with the children and the families, you know. So that's where it all starts.
Now, I want to ask you, and it might be a little bit of a difficult question,
Mhm,
but again, like when you're talking about kind of representation, like, because I know we have said like white children performers who will have that kind of same message of how we're all one, like everyone's different, but like we
mhm,
got to treat people. But like, I wonder, obviously, does it have I guess, a more impact in terms of, because I know if I'm listening to it and I'm kind of like, I'm surrounded here by a lot of like, I guess, white people.
mhm,
Yes, every once in a while I'll run into a person of color.
mhm.
And when I mention to them about, oh, well, like these are the people I listen to, and they'll say, like, no, I didn't grow up with that, right? Because like they don't see themselves being represented
Right,
through, say, a Splash and Boots or Sharon Lois and Bram, and
right.
I understand that. But like, I feel like for someone like myself, now I'm obviously white, so I don't want people to think it's like a white privilege thing. But like when I see someone like yourself come out with this kind of a song, and then obviously there's a group of kids, uh, like of color that listen to it, like to
Yeah.
me that's good because it's almost like, all right, now this is your version, or this is a person that you can look up to and say, when I was younger, she gave me the same message.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, I'll put it this way: when I'm looking at shows back in the day of like the 90s and 80s, there's like a lot of, for the most part, depending on what you watch, there's like division. Like I can watch Full House and get
Yeah.
a different message than watching Family Matters. Did it really change my impact of how I related to race? Yeah, an occasion maybe, because you're talking about, I remember one episode of Family Matters, and I think we had this conversation with another guest where at the end of Family Matters, they talked about how students should hand in their guns because the episode was about a gun shooting. And I'm like, you're
Wow.
not seeing that on Full House. You're not, it's
Right.
just right. So I feel like there's a part of you that then kind of, because of how you've seen that, you're like, oh man, now I have to be careful of,
Yeah.
like, but it's not really fair. So I,
No, no. I mean, no, it's not. But it is correct. It is
yeah,
true, and it
but
is real.
it's just weeding out, like, basically just
Yeah.
because the episode said that does not mean like every person now you see of color has
Has
like a gun or
to.
whatever. So then you kind of have to and that's where I feel like, having more representation, kind of like how we
Mhm.
started off this thing, where it's like, if you have like white children performers, like people of color having children performers, and then you have something relatable to everyone. Like
Right.
I said earlier, I'm not just distinguished to listening to like white rappers. Like I can listen to like different musicians. And if
Right.
if someone walked up to me and was like, "Hey, you can't listen to Mary J. Blige," I'd be like, I don't know how to take that. Like, I guess I can, but I understand where you're coming from. But it's like, I'd be like, aren't you listening to Adele? And they're
Music.
like, yeah. And
Right.
I'd be like,
No,
all right. So what's your point? But I do
we
like that, like
need
having more
diversity.
represent.
I feel like there needs to be diversity in everywhere. You know,
Exactly.
and
Because then
that's
everyone has a voice and everyone
exactly
feels like just because if I say, well, I relate to this person, someone can say I relate to that. And then sometimes you might be like, you know what? That's interesting because I can kind of relate to that person as well. And I think that's kind of the whole message here.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to ask you now, because I know we kind of touched on it with the Grammys too, and I think your answer was really well put in that. But like, I want to ask you, when you getting this nomination,
Mm-hmm.
like what does that entail for you? Like I know you kind of expanded on it, but like just go deeper into like, because obviously you made a point, you're getting like the credit that you deserve, and just to be nominated has to kind of, I'm not even saying like, obviously I feel like if I was in the room and I don't win, I'm just still like, oh, I didn't win, this is stupid. And they'd be like, this is why he doesn't get nominated. But for you, what
Yeah.
does this nomination entail or mean?
Well, this nomination, I mean, just being nominated is still recognition. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's that's why they say it's a nod. It's like you have done the duty. You know what I mean? Um, so I mean, of course, I want to win and I want that trophy and I want to be a
I'd
Grammy
be shocked if you said you didn't want to win. I'd be like, all right, just take her off the sheet.
Well, yeah, I mean, just it's in the fact. I mean, it's been so many years for me being in the industry, and and it's so funny because one of my mentor, Jimmy Douglas, who was the Timberland's engineer, who is still my mentor today, he said, you never know how it's going to happen. You never know how it's going to happen. You never know, and so right because would I have known this 15 years ago or whatever, that I was going to be, first of all, writing children's music? I was going to be a part of a group. I was going to, suddenly be nominated for a Grammy for Best Children's Album.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. If you'd have told me that, I'd be like, you're crazy. There's no freaking way. So yeah, I mean, it means so much for me, just to be recognized and actually just be in the company of so many amazing artists in this genre. Now, when we talk about representation, now I started writing children's music, what, like 15 years, 15 years ago. I didn't really start performing it like at festivals and things like that until maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Now my circle of people in this genre didn't really expand until maybe 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I knew nothing about the culture that was waiting for me in this genre because there was no exposure.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So me as an adult, I had no clue that there were other people that looked like me doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
So this is very important for that reason because I feel like having a nomination, being recognized by the music's most prestigious institution, you know, is the best credibility you can have, doing this, doing children's music or whatever genre you're doing, but for
Yeah.
in this case, children's music, family music. And I feel like this is going to help us to continue to gain more exposure so other kids and other artists that look like me and have like similar skin color can go, oh wow, wow, like I didn't know,
Well,
I didn't know that there were
yeah.
black artists or Indian artists or all these different backgrounds doing this type of music and these type of projects. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, my mind
Yeah.
has exploded finding out that, oh my God, like so many artists in Washington, all around the country. I've met so many. That's the great thing too about this All One Tribe album is that we're not all sitting in LA. We're not all sitting in New York.
Yeah.
We are everywhere. We have people in Africa, Washington, D.C., Seattle, Florida, Chicago, like everywhere. And it's incredible how we have come together to create something magnificent. And I feel like, that it's going to be heard. It's got a shot at being heard, actually. And again, it just really helps us to move forward with other projects in terms of like, maybe working, because a lot of people, like I have a vision of working in animation and doing children's animated shows, live action shows, things like that, all based around life lessons and mindfulness, still, positive messaging. And then, this person over here wants to do this and do that and create this. But I feel like now we actually have a shot where we can actually be heard and
Yeah.
create these things. And these things might actually happen that will provide more diversity and representation for ethnic kids, on these different networks or streaming platforms and so on and so forth. So that is just so important. It's really important, for everyone, children especially, but I think adults as well. And I'm a good example of that.
Yeah.
I had no clue, so it's amazing.
Yeah, because I liked how you mentioned about representation and kind of where I wanted to go with that in terms of like, if someone sees you and they don't have to be a kid, they can be an adult and say, okay, I can actually do this or make it in this field.
Hmm.
It's kind of interesting because in Canada we have obviously like news anchors as well, and we have one named Janelle Amasa, and she's like the first one that wears a hijab, I believe it. And it's kind of interesting because like I'm sure they're and it's kind of like being the first to do something sometimes can be both good and bad,
Right.
especially if in the world that's kind of divided and everyone has an opinion. Because she'll go on TikTok and then she'll actually like make light of things where like someone will send a tweet at her and say, you know, how dare you wear hijab, or like shouldn't you go do something and blah, like shouldn't you be going blowing up things, and then like I'm just like, all right, like how is she gonna play this one off? And then she just literally will then like take it super professionally. But
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that is one. Imagine how many she gets of those a day.
Right.
But at the same time, is having, I guess, the courage, or I'm not gonna say audacity, but just the courage and more or less like the willpower to like get through that.
Hmm.
Because I guess she's looking and saying, I'm the first, but I won't be the last.
Right.
Because there are kids out there that like before her, they probably thought, well, I haven't seen anyone with a jab do news, so I guess I can't. And then now they're gonna look and be like, all right, fair game. Like if she's
Right.
doing it, I can do it. And I
Right.
think like again, representation is key to everything because like
It helps.
we
Like,
we don't have, for example, like not that it needs to be over expressed, but sometimes you don't see people with disability being represented. And
hmm.
then all it takes is like one or two, and you're like, all right, well, if that person did it, what's stopping me from doing it? So
Like,
in
there's
your terms of
no
now getting, yeah, like in your terms of now seeing the nominations, and you're like, all right, well, like there could be like, other artists out there, or musicians that kind of had children albums, and they're like, well, we never get nominated, and it definitely has to do with our skin color. And then now they see you and they're like, you know what, let's give it another shot. Or now we
Mhm.
don't have anything really to hold you back. So
There's no barriers.
yeah.
No barriers, absolutely. Because I've had actually people discover me on Instagram, or contact me, because of now this coverage and, this, the press I'm getting from the nomination and things like that. That will, other artists just, that
Yeah.
are in these small towns, and they're like, oh, I do this, I do children's music, check this out and this and that. And it's great. And I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. Because a lot of people too don't really know much about family music or children's artists, entertainment, like
Yeah.
the only thing they know, and which is, I was guilty of this as well, is what we have seen on television, Mr. Rogers and Sesame Street, and maybe the Wiggles, and uh, you know,
I was gonna be like, I'm guilty because like I've at least two or three that I've mentioned and that you mentioned with the Wiggles. Like we've had them on, but it was like because I was exposed because my niece and nephew watch it, and like it's pretty much like, all right, we've had Emma Wiggle on, and it's like, all right, it's like, oh, I would not probably have Emma Wiggle on because only for our niece and nephew are in the room, and they'll be like, I don't want to watch hockey. Turn on the Wiggles. I'll be like, I don't want to watch the Wiggles, and then it's like, put on the Wiggles, or
yeah,
you like, and I'm like, all right, and then you'll be like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So yeah, like exposure goes a long way.
it goes so far, and it's so important. Again, not just for, the children and the families that are receiving, but other artists. That are in these small places that enjoy what they do, but they probably aren't sure that it's real. You know what
Yeah,
I mean? Because even writing my stuff, I was thinking, it might, may not see the light of day. It may just be for my kids, but
yeah.
I I mean, we shouldn't have to feel that. We shouldn't have to think that. And it's just amazing that now there's a shot that that won't be it, you know? So it's incredible. It's really incredible.
I want to ask you kind of like to close out the conversation here as well, but like we're in 2022. I feel like, depending on what part of the world you are in, COVID is very impactful, or there's people like, well, we're getting over COVID. But I want to ask you, like, what are some other kind of, I guess, goals you have for 22 or things
Mhm.
that you're looking forward to? Because obviously, like, I feel like a Grammy nomination or a
Mhm.
win is a good start. But
Yes.
like, obviously, like, what are some other things that you might have on a bucket list that you're like, let's get these done? Like, I feel like I don't want to be like that person where it's like, I got a Grammy and everything else in 2022 is just to like, you go back in December, someone's like, what did you accomplish? It's like, I won a Grammy. And then it's like, all right, we know you told us that every month.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Well, I mean, I'm always very ambitious. Like I'm always like, I want to do this. Yes, I do have a bucket list. Okay. Are you ready? Are you sure I have time to live?
Go for it. I don't have a bucket list as much as I have like a phone that has like a few things where it's like, just make sure you try your best today. I'm like, all right, got it.
Right. I've already started on a new Snooknuk album already. So I'm working on a new album. I'm working on a Christmas album as well. And
Nice.
I am actually creating some content for a new app, children's app, interactive app, I should say, because that's the key thing that's what sets it apart from other apps for children is that it's interactive. And so I'll be creating some episodes based on some of the topics that I write about, which is amazing to be able to do that. And then also, I had already started writing this animated series a few years ago, and I'd like to write more episodes and actually get it placed. That would be a biggie for me. So that's very ambitious. And do I feel like it can happen? Yes, I do feel like it can happen because now I feel like anything can happen. Yeah. So, I mean, I kind of consider myself, and I always thought, when I started doing the children's stuff and performing with children and going to the festivals and things like that, because I loved, first of all, I loved Annie, and I loved Carol Burnett and Annie. I
Okay.
love that whole thing. I loved Julie Andrews is one of my. Oh, I love Julie Andrews. I love her and everything she does. But specifically, Mary Poppins and Sound of Music and all of that stuff. And I love music in movies. I'm a musical fanatic, and so are my kids. Actually, we watch a lot of musicals, and I want to do that. Like that, I could see myself. I always say, like my kids go, "Well, mom, you can be a Black Julie Andrews." I'm like, "Yeah, you're right." Ah,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? So I just like, and that to me sounds like music to my ears, and do I feel like, because I don't know if I ever really felt like I could do that or it would be accepted or, has there ever been someone of color that did those types of things? Not that I can remember,
Yeah.
Um, so that's another threshold that I might want to take on, you know?
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like it's interesting because when you're mentioning like all these goals and accomplishments, I'm looking at my list and being like, all right, let's start working. Let's figure out what we got to do.
That's going to do it for this episode of Tobin Tonight. Our thanks to Cheri Moon for coming on to the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com, Spotify, and iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave a comment or two. For Tobin and myself, this is Jacob saying thank you for listening and good night.